Texas rugby fans in a world plagued by terrible rugby podcasts, you turn to us every single month for absolutely fantastic, cutting edge. Oh, maybe are we part of those terrible podcasts as well? I don't know, but this is Texas Rugby Monthly.
We probably are.
We probably are. This right here is episode 12, the 1-year anniversary of the three gentlemen from Austin, Dallas, and Houston getting together to talk rugby, to talk MLR, to talk high school, to talk whatever we want to talk about. Sometimes we don't even know what we're going to talk about. That's not this episode. We've got lots of stuff to talk about because, well, we're recording this on September 9th when we should have recorded this 2 weeks ago. But due to technical difficulties and, well, a variety of different things and honey-do lists, because, you know, you got to make sure you keep those in line. We're recording it today, Thursday, September 9th. Lots of information to go around. Rick Collins is up in Dallas on the campus of SMU with a loud background and terrible internet connection. Rick, welcome to the show. Grant Cole over in Houston, getting ready to eat some delicious shepherd's pie maybe later tonight. Oh, we'll see. I don't know. We'll find out more. Stay tuned. I'm Dustin Zare down in Austin, Texas Rugby Monthly. We're here. 1 year, gentlemen. Can you believe that?
It's been an incredible year, despite the pandemic.
Wait, we had a pandemic?
What? Yes.
Yeah, pandemic.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I remember I went back. I went back and watched episode 1, right? I said, okay, let's go watch episode 1 and what we were trying to do. It reminded me to mute Rick in the background for a minute there while everybody yells, maybe rugby practice. Episode 1, we got together. We said, hey, here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about high school rugby, college rugby, professional rugby. We'll talk about the Austin Gilgronis, the Houston Sabercats, and the Dallas Jackals. And then we didn't get to talk about the Jackals for a while. That's kind of fun. But we do our best to bring you, the listener, the watcher, wherever you're following, great interviews, which you'll see on this podcast, which was recorded a week or two ago. But you're also going to get some more information about what's going on in each one of our cities. Let's kick it off with the man with the terrible internet connection and the loud people in the background. Rick, the Dallas Jackals, you've actually had some things going on in Dallas the past couple of weeks. What's happening up there?
It's been actually pretty exciting. So, obviously, it led off with the draft and getting 5 players, not unlike we did last year of getting it started, right? But last year, we actually had a coach. Right now, we are still struggling in that department. We have assistant coaches that are on payroll currently.
Yeah.
I don't know what the situation will be with them if we bring in a new head coach. Are they going to be out? But they're carrying the load while we wait. And then we also have the announcement of Jack over the course of the last year as being the mascot, and so he's going out and putting different events.
Is he going to coach the team?
No, and I've understood that there is not an actual Jack. That it is a costume that is sent around, and there are different people wearing it.
So you're saying there's still a chance for you? There's still a chance for Rick Collins.
My resume is still over there, although I think they probably burned it at this point. The one thing that I would say is that, despite not having a coach, Elaine Bassey has kept things going extremely well. And, under her leadership, we got 5 new players and 2 more announced. All the teams had to make, I believe, at least 3 players available to the Jackals in the last month and a half.
Yeah.
And so we're starting to get the announcements of those players that were made available. The first one was WHCL, Mike Prato. I'm probably butchering that.
Yeah.
From New York. He's a shorter lock. I think he's expected to play lock, but looking at what they did last year was they were going to play King Clark and Bronson Tellos, who were shorter lock type players at flanker.
Yeah.
I think the expectation is that he's made got some flexibility there. He did play at the University of Notre Dame, so possibly in the league, he's penciled in as a lock. And then just announced this morning with Bronson Ellis coming back from the Eastern Sabercats. Sorry, Grant. But we're excited to have him back in the Tellis family along with him.
Yeah.
And I'm happy. I'm happy for Bronson. I mean,
That's
he's
kind
a
of
solid.
it for the Jackals so far.
Yeah.
Bronson is a solid 6, and that'll be a good thing to have on that weak side of the scrum coming in for Jackals.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see who you guys pick up from each of the other teams too. Because a lot of these, we talk about it. A lot of the different rules and behind the scenes of MLR. Who gets, who's kept and who's open free agency and things like that. It's not as well known as, say, Major League Baseball or other entities.
Yeah, there's no transparency here yet.
Not yet. I would like to see that. I'd like to see from Austin. Hey, who's already signed for next year? Who's waiting on contracts? Like we talked with Connor Mooneyham, and he said, "I'm working on my contract extension." So that's great. From what I understand, It is done. So that's awesome. Sorry, guys. I know, right? I know you're trying, but there's a whole slew of players that for each team that are probably quality level that the Jackals are gonna pick up and be able to bring in for the 2022 season.
I think you're gonna see more as coaching staff change. I know with Houston bringing in a new coach, there could be some changes there in terms of the roster.
Yeah.
But obviously, there's going to be opportunities for players to move down there with HTX and, younger guys to play at that level and work their way into, the good graces of the new coaching staff. But, New England's got a new coaching staff. We don't know what else is shaking up right in the next 6 months or so.
Yeah.
So I think there's going to be opportunities for the Jackals to find the players, but I think the biggest problem right now is without a head coach. It's basically what Elaine is selling these players on. But if they can bring in that big name head coach.
And right there, we've lost Rick Collins' audio and video feed. He's just staring at the camera, just kind of looking at it. So we'll when and if Rick returns. I don't know if you can hear us right now or not, but when he returns, we'll catch up with other things that are going on in Dallas rugby. So, the joys of technology. Poor Rick.
Perhaps we should break the news to Rick now while he's frozen.
No, we'll continue on. We'll save that for later.
Okay.
Let's save grand finale.
What's going on in Austin there? Big guy?
Austin's had it's been, we talk about, the draft happened, which is great. Don't you hold on. The draft happened. I want to talk about that. Sevens rugby, and we had a signing already this season. But I want to start with Sevens rugby because I think that this was an interesting year for Sevens rugby. Because of the qualifiers and things being, everybody just trying to bid to get into that national championship. Mm-hmm. It was a little unique, and I think what the Huns got in and the Reds got in, which I'm sure that Rick was going to talk about.
No, he wasn't going to talk about the Reds.
Well, he would talk. He would talk about it from a seven. He would talk about it from a seven standpoint.
No, that was not a good weekend for the Reds.
Well, I mean, he'd have to talk about it, but yeah, the Reds. Honestly, if you watch the Sevens, they did not perform at all. It was bad.
They played connected all through the season, and then that weekend they just weren't there.
They'd never played with each other before.
Yeah, exactly. And talking to Dylan Carey and after he was injured, and his injury was pretty
serious,
nasty.
Yeah.
He intimated the same to me that we're just not together today.
Yeah.
We're not connected today.
Yeah.
So,
so
go ahead, Austin.
So Austin, as we got a nice black screen for Rick there, maybe he'll come back in. I'll make sure I mute him when he does. So the Huns, they really had a great I think they had a great sevens tournament. They finished it 5th overall, which is pretty phenomenal. The scores from the matches, they lost to the first match to Chicago Lions 12-7, which, Grant, you and I kind of touched base upon beforehand. They really they left some tries on the pitch. They should have beat Chicago.
And they knew it.
Yeah, it was tough. They took on WAC. They beat WAC 19-10. They went back and played Oceanside and absolutely thumped Oceanside 38-12. It was a good match. And then they went into the last day and took on West Side Ronins, and unfortunately lost that first match to West Side, which it was. I don't know what it was about that match, but I just think that Ronin showed up, and I think the Huns just kind of they didn't link up as well as they probably had been in some of the other matches. So
they bounced back.
They bounced back quick, took out Old Blue 29-17, and then took on Life West and won 12-5 to place
and Life
fifth.
West was, and all the commentators and everybody who was up in the booth at that game, we all thought that Life West would win that game.
Yeah, exactly.
I was the only one. I the only one that put, I put the Huns down, of course.
Yeah.
But everybody else thought, Life West has been playing so well today. Stanfield's been on the money.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, Brandon shut Tim Stanfield down in that game.
Yeah, exactly.
And Tim he was frustrated about it. But that was, the Huns really played. They punched above their weight in that last game.
They absolutely
that's why
did.
they won.
Yeah, I definitely think that they did. And again, that was it was big for them. It was big to have them come back in. Hey, let's bring Rick Collins back in. Speaking of bringing people back in, Rick Collins, welcome to the show. Nice to see you. Welcome back.
He's still frozen.
He's still frozen.
We're just going to call him Elsa now.
Yeah. Oh, Elsa. There you go. Rick Collins, frozen once again. For those of you listening, came back in on video, so you can see him on video, but he's not going anywhere. But yeah, so Huns fifth best. You talk about it. That national championship, for the final was Chicago Lions and West Side Ronins. So basically, both the Huns lost to the the first and second place teams.
In the final.
Yeah. And so I couldn't be happier for the Huns. They put together a fantastic performance. They had a great 7 season, really piggyback on what Adam's been doing there with the Huns the past couple of seasons. Just overall, I've seen it a lot. The growth that they've had since 5 years, so 2016. From what I can see, I think Adam's done and that coaching staff, it's not just Adam, it's everybody else too, but they've done a really great job. So congrats to the Huns on a great season. Look forward to seeing, this season one this D1 season coming up. Because I think it's going to be hotly contested. I think, Huns Blacks, with Rugby HTX competing as well, Dallas with the Quins being tied in with the Jackals and stuff. I think it's going to be fascinating to see how people interact, how people play against each other, and the overall play of that club level is just getting better and better. I already know that there are quite a few people who are kind of talking to within the Huns and sorry, Rick just messaged and said the phone is too hot. It won't let me get a connection, which I find absolutely hilarious.
That's why you don't podcast outside.
Yep, that's why you don't go outside. So, but yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see. Like I said, they've been talking to people who were in the draft or who were draft eligible, saying, "Hey, come down to Austin. Let's see if we can find you jobs." Like the Huns job board, which is a great resource for local people. There's a bunch of people saying, "I want to move to Austin. I want to be close to MLR." And I think we've talked about this before. Same thing's probably happening in Houston and in Dallas as well. But I think it's going to be a great opportunity for them to really move forward with the growth of the sport here in Austin. Speaking of growth of the sport, we had the draft, and I thought that was pretty big for the MLR to have a good, solid, and the draft looked great, right? The broadcast was done perfectly. Like I thought, just high quality all around on Fox Sports for the first round, and then over Rugby Network for the next 2, which was good. Austin had 3 picks. They took basically they took a winger, they took a blindside flanker, and they took a hooker. So Caleb Strum out of University of Alabama, who's a 6'3", 190-pound winger, lightning quick. I believe if I'm not mistaken, and I could be, I believe he was playing with the Huns this summer in sevens. If I'm not mistaken, I thought I saw his name, but I might be wrong. Or he was playing at the national sevens with somebody else.
Casey Fleck.
No, I'm thinking of Casey Fleck. I'm sorry about that. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
Caleb Storm was playing, but he was playing with the team from Virginia, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So,
Nova.
No, that's what it was. Nova. So he was playing, he just wasn't with there. But now he's coming down here, so that'd be interesting to see. Their 20th pick was Asa Carter, who was a Arkansas State. Arkansas State, year after year, they tend to pump out some really good rugby players. He's a blindside flanker. He's a big dude. And from what I've seen, different reports on him, apparently in the past year or two, like he bulked up big time. I think it was a gentleman from Utah, like one of the performance guys at Utah, said that he knew him, and he's like, "Yeah, this guy really just put the workload in this year for Arkansas State." So be good to see what he does. And then Brandon Aspel, who is from Davenport University, who's another hooker. And last year Austin took a hooker and was pretty successful with selecting a hooker with their second pick of the draft. So we'll see what happens. There's a lot of competition at hooker, but as we all know, forwards, like with injuries, like we had injuries last year for Austin, and we had to, at sometimes we called on Brendan Rams to say, "Hey Rams, you got to be ready, come down and play," and he was ready.
Ramsey's always ready.
He's always ready. It don't matter. But I think overall that's three good picks. I can be honest, like I try to do some research on the guys. It's pretty hard to find. Don't know a whole lot about all of them. I know that with Dave, going there and going to the high performance camp, or basically the combine that they had in the was it Connecticut? Was that where it was? That the combine for everybody?
Yeah, it was Connecticut.
But so that was interesting. I think maybe next year it would be good to have more than just one and have it around the country, because I don't know if all the college guys could get up there to Connecticut that needed to get up there. So we'll see how that goes. So that's what I got for at least our draft picks for Austin. In other Austin news, we had a signing already, which was kind of surprising for a lot of people.
Big signing.
Big signing, yeah. And so, for those that will watch the USA Canada match from last week, for all of our American fans, please don't go watch that because it was a terrible performance. We signed Marcel Brockie, and you talk about somebody who's got Western force. He's been playing top level rugby for a while, and he can play kind of all over the back line. In last week he lined up
13 to 15.
Yeah, 13 to 15. Last week he lined up right next to Bryce, and you had a nice combination of Will McGee playing 10, Bryce at 12, and Brockie at 13. And I think it shows the opportunity. But I think this week he's actually lining up at 15, and Will's moving to the bench with McGinty coming back in at 10. So that'll be interesting to see what happens there. But I mean, really, we're talking 58 Super Rugby appearances. He's been around for a while. USA Eagle. It's good to have that. Yeah. It's going to be. I'm pretty excited that he's coming on the team. It's going to be a good opportunity for us to show off what I guess what he can do, because some people may have not have ever seen him play outside of USA Eagles. Like if they're they may not realize like, hey, I'm watching an Eagle there if they're not paying close attention to it. So. That's just my thought on that. So. And in the world of Austin rugby, those are kind of the main things that happened in the month of August leading up to September. It's a quiet time. The draft was big. We ended the season. Season tickets for next year are gone on sale. I know that they're doing some things at UT football games at tailgating, so they've got all that going on. So that's pretty exciting too. Grant, what's happening in Houston?
Well, what has happened? Rugby HTX took a team to Club Sevens, and we won the Silver Cup. Here's the medal.
Woohoo! There you go, buddy.
They have to mail us the cup because the cup was labeled wrong.
Oh my gosh!
So, but yeah, we got our medals. So, my dog is, by the way, in the background. Oh, he's in real trouble now. I know that tone of voice. Don't do that. And then came back from that, and they played the Sabercats team that played at Rugby Town played pretty good, pretty decent edge. Saw some pretty big names on there.
Yeah.
I can tell you that Taviti Lopetti was our first draft pick until because we thought that the Jackals would take Emmanuel
Yeah.
Albert,
Yeah.
and when they didn't take Albert, it was a no brainer.
Yeah.
He was second on our list, and you take him because he's not going to stay there. He's not going to stay in the draft after second pick.
Yeah.
And then with him and Minche and Dylan Shotwell, we've got two good, back rows that have come out of Lindenwood, a program that is probably as close to, varsity and professional as we have in America, and including Cal.
Yeah.
But the Cal players, they come out of Cal and they've got $60,000 jobs or 3-figure jobs waiting for them. Why go to rugby? It's just not something they're going to do. But coming out of Lindenwood, that's a different story.
Yeah.
So, it's really good to see those two. They're going to be in the back row, of course. And then Shotwell, we've been trying to get him on the Rugby HTX boards for a few years, but he's been in college and finishing that up. So we're really excited to have those two. Then, after that, of course, between the sevens, or right as the sevens, and then between the sevens and there, we had Heineke Meyer announced as our director of rugby.
That's a big announcement. That was huge. Really huge.
And then I mean, it shook the U.S. rugby world. One of his proteges is going to be coaching at Free Jacks this year. They just announced that yesterday. We've got Vic Meyer coming in. They haven't announced this yet, but Vic's just following his dad around. Vic Meyer's coming in as basically our technical to help us out with Rugby HTX, because we're going to more closely integrate the two teams. And then, of course, this week, Poeta Uman has been announced as our coach. Potes, as we call him. Yep. And he's no slouch of a coach himself.
No, not at all.
So I mean, he's had some good seasons with the Blue Bulls, and especially with the must say this wrong, and I'm sorry, everybody. The Schwimlers, in the Varsity Cup.
Yeah.
Which Varsity Cup, I can tell you right now from watching it, that's tougher than any D1 rugby in the USA.
Yeah.
That's a harder, faster game than any D1 rugby in the USA, and it's harder and faster D1A college too. So even though it's considered a college event, it's the weeding ground out for the ones who who can handle the grind and who can't handle the grind.
Yeah, for sure.
And so moving on from that, Rugby HTX has a 9 rugby weekend fall schedule already.
Yeah.
5 games in a row, then a tournament, then a game, then Thanksgiving, then 3 games in a row. Whew. And got another 9 scheduled in the spring, and looking to schedule 4 more. So we're going to put these boys through the paces.
The ringer is what I was going to say.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, and if you've read H's books or any interviews with him, you know that he's got a high standard, and that standard, got to be adhered to, and you don't get to that high standard by standing still.
Yeah.
And so you've got to learn how to treat your body and do all those things and get in there. One of the things I really like is there's a draftee that was told this week by his team that he's not getting contracted.
What? And
he called me up, and now he's planning on coming down here and playing with us.
That's. I thought the teams were obligated to sign the draftees.
No.
I thought there was an obligation with this.
No, it's an obligation to visit it.
Why would you draft somebody if you're not going to sign them? Like
I don't know the answer to that. And it doesn't matter. I got another scrum half, and he was.
I love that you said scrum half.
I got another scrum half down here, and that's and that's what we want. We want these boys to come in hungry, uh, perform, get up to speed, and put pressure on the Cats.
Yeah,
Saying, guys,
sure.
we're here. We want to take your spot, or we want to be able to step up when you get hurt, and that's a big deal. So that's our news right now here in Houston.
Yeah. Oh man, great. Good to hear. Look who's back. Rick Collins.
And we've done the Austin and Houston
Computers
news.
don't work well.
Dustin,
Yeah. Rick is there.
Dustin, we've
They
done
still
that.
don't work well.
Yeah, right. So I don't know if he can even hear us now. So he gets in here and then it just freezes. Oh, can you hear us? He can't hear us. Hey, I'll tell you what.
Sorry, guys. Give me a minute.
Grant, we're going to give him a minute. We're going to take a quick break and we're going to interview our guests and we'll come right back.
Okay.
Good technology. Be right back. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, and we're back. We have a great guest, but before I introduce him, I just wanted to say what a great MLR season we just went through. We saw an awesome draft with 3 rounds that we talked about, and it's incredible that finally Dallas is going to have a team. And
it's still not
hey,
done yet.
Hey, no, it's happening. And speaking of Dallas, let's go ahead and introduce our guest today, and that's Michael Engelbrecht, who, I'm going to let you introduce all the things you've been a part of, but mainly with, the U23, U20 programs, coaching defense, being a head coach and director of rugby at the Quins, and now back officially today announced as the Dallas Harlequins head coach.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. Yeah, you got the scoop on that one. Yeah, I'm actually pretty excited to be back with the Quins. I mean, I didn't actually sort of like ever leave. I just no longer was the head coach there once Super League for us ended. Stuck around for a little while and then went off to University of North Texas. I live up towards the Denton area, so that just sort of became convenient at that point in time. But I'm always been a Quinn and will always be a Quinn, so I was always, even then, still very much supportive of what they were doing and trying to achieve, and came in periodically as, I guess, a consultant, if you want to call it that, and worked primarily on things like defense, which has become my forte in most recent years. But yeah, it's been quite a journey, and you don't get hair my color if you haven't been around for a long time. So
You mean, wait, hold on. You didn't get that all from Rick?
Yeah, coaching Rick
Half
will
of it.
actually add a few in there for sure. Yeah.
Probably the whole right side. That's how I would.
Yeah, exactly. So, but no, I mean, yeah, I've had actually a pretty interesting journey and a most rewarding journey. And I think you guys, Rick, I don't know your playing background, but Rick, I certainly know yours. And if when you get to that point of your rugby playing career, when that part's over, I really struggled for a couple of years once I retired to adapt back, I guess, to normal life, because I was, so engaged and so involved in playing rugby and studying rugby and being a rugby player. And then you retire and you go like, okay, well, what's next? And thankfully for me, my son at that age started to get interested in rugby. He was, I don't know, 13 years old or something at the time. And I took him out to practice and thought, hey, if he's going to learn this game, I'm going to get involved and help teach it. And that's when I actually fell in love with coaching. And I say to everybody, it is the absolute next best thing to playing.
Mhm.
I know not everybody's necessarily cut out to be a coach, but find some way to give back. And initially, that's what I was thinking was, not only working with my kid, but finding some way to give back. And like I said, just fell in love with it and got totally absorbed with it, like I tend to do with most things. And pretty soon we got some success with the Quinn Colts, which was where the high school team that I coached at the time. We went to nationals a number of times while I was coaching there, and got invited into a USA U19 age grade camp, just as a sort of as an observer, just to see what was going on. And Salty Thompson. I'm sure you guys have heard of Salty.
Oh, yeah.
Who's been very instrumental in the development of many rugby players for many years here in the US. Was the head coach, and he invited me in and got me involved like right away, actually doing coaching things. And before I knew it, I was actually a part of his coaching staff. And so from 2004, actually all the way through to this year, where they've just announced the new U20 staff, I've been engaged with USA Rugby at that age grade level, in various capacities, various age groups. Quite a significant tenure, which I'm actually really proud of, because obviously the goal there is to develop the next generation of Eagle, but at the same time, put values and live those values so that the players can actually become better people as well through the game of rugby. That's always been a goal and an objective of mine as a coach. So those are the rewarding things, is when you see players that you've worked with, had some parts of their training has been your involvement, become Eagles. Not everybody that we've coached obviously become Eagles, but just to see them succeed in life and get invited to their weddings, or being told that they've just had a kid, or just stay in contact with these different players, no matter where their rugby career lands them, has actually been some of the most rewarding parts of my entire coaching career. Still stay in contact with many people in all facets of life. But yeah, I mean, there are obviously some people that have achieved quite a few things in rugby that I'm proud to have had a part in their development, for sure.
Yeah. Who's one of the, I guess, I won't say surprising, but who's somebody that you kind of looked at when he was maybe when you were coaching when he was younger, that kind of surprised you and became an Eagle, maybe like out of like, oh, I didn't see that coming. Like he really worked hard and stepped up and did something that you just didn't expect. Or, some of the guys that you've coached that have gone on to be Eagles that you said, man, that you saw it at a young age. Like, yeah, they were going to be something special.
Yeah, I don't know if I've actually been surprised, because when you get around these players at a young age, I mean, you can tell the ones that have sort of such an interest and a desire,
Mm-hmm.
and you see them frequently enough, so nothing really surprises you. And one of the things that I learned early on is don't ever count a player out at those ages. You might find somebody when they're 15, 16, 17 years old, and you're going, guy's probably not going to get it, right? And so the tendency is you don't invite him back to a camp, right? But the idea is you've got to keep tabs on that person, because a year later they've put on 20 pounds, or they've finally grown into their feet, or whatever, and so you can't ever write anybody off. I mean, and so that's why nothing really surprises me, because I learned early on, don't underestimate people at all, because they can achieve things that you may not necessarily see on the surface. So stick with it. Give them plenty of opportunities, especially at those ages, because they will come through and they will develop. And the ones that have that stickability are the ones that move forward. I'll give you an example, right? So Nate Ebner, you guys all know Nate,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or of Nate. So Nate was in our programs early on, came in as a youngster, and Nate, the way that I would have to evaluate Nate, was always a good athlete, and he always pushed himself relatively hard in comparison to the other players. And just because of that desire and work ethic, you go, okay, good athlete, good work ethic, can achieve great things, right? But it really was driven home to me when we were going, I want to say it might have been to like Belfast in like 2007. And we had the players all on a training program, but we were trying to measure their conditioning and their fitness and those sorts of things, right?
Yeah.
And we would get the reports back, oh, I can't, do my whatever, because it's, snow outside and the roads are slippery and whatever, right? Whatever excuses people can come up with, they can find, right? But Nate, being in Ohio, right, where it's got a fair bit of snow around in the winter months, he sent back these phenomenal scores, and we're going like, okay, how's this guy doing this when these other players are in those same sort of areas are not? Turns out he found himself a parking garage, multi-level parking garage, and he's doing his conditioning, running up and down the levels and running up and down the stairwells, doing all of his sprint work and stuff. So when you hear those kinds of stories about a guy, okay, so he found a way to make it work. There's something special. So those are the kinds of stories that make or break people, because someone's prepared to do that extra work. In this case, it's actually finding another way to get in shape. And look where it's taken him, that whole mindset and approach to his craft.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So
I'll give you a
I
couple
wanted
more
to ask.
examples. Yep. Go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you, but I wanted to get more into like that pathway, right? You're talking about one pathway, and we're seeing MLR, development programs maybe as another pathway. What do you think about all the pathways? Is there a perfect pathway, or do you think there's a bunch of different pathways for different people? What do you think is the most effective thing right now for players who are coming up who want to, play professional rugby, play for the national team?
So I would say one size does not fit all, right? America is like a massive country, right? So the ability to be able to uncover talent in every nook and cranny is a very difficult task in a country of this size, right? So I think in my mind and what I've seen in the past that works are these multiple pathways, multiple opportunities and entry points into that supply chain, right? If you will. Um, the USA U20 and the USA national team pathway, for example, is one that I know very well, and we've had tremendous success with that. Right, pretty much any test match, both 15s and 7s, the squads for those match day squads, we're at about 33% of players that have come through the age grade system.
Hmm.
Right, that make the Eagle squads, 15s and 7s. We've actually been higher at times, right? And in fact, I think we got like 52% a couple of years back was the highest, right? But for the most part, we typically average around 33%, 35% of the players that have gone through the age grade systems that have played on that go to make the national team. So that is a good stat. I don't know if USA Rugby actually keeps that stat, but I do. But to show that it actually works, right? But along the way, you've got other avenues that can get people into there. I think Major League Rugby right now, if we're talking about just the Eagles, is a fantastic avenue. And I think more can be made even of that pathway. But you're starting to see Eagles going to Eagle camps and being selected for the Eagles that didn't come through those other pathways, but they landed up on a Major League Rugby team and now have caught the national selectors' eyes, right? So I think that's a fantastic pathway, but I think that can also be fleshed out a little bit. I think that's going to be in its sort of infancy. And what I'm sort of alluding to there is, I know they've got, what do they call it? They have a plan, a development plan as part of the Major League Rugby. I just can't think of the term that they've got there, focused on age grade and stuff. And I think it's up to like maybe U23. I'd love, for example, that to be fleshed out. And the U23 things, actually, as the USA U20s have played a couple of the U23 teams in preparation for different events. But I would like to see something like the Six Nations U20s, right, and the Six Nations U18s. Maybe what if Major League Rugby decided to go in that direction, use those as like curtain raisers to a home game, for example. That would be a great way to continually develop these players, but also have the national team interests in mind for those age grade levels and obviously the rewards from beyond that. So that might be nice, to see something like that.
Oh, sorry. No, I was gonna say it's interesting you say that because when you said 33%, that would go on to play beat Eagle, I thought that was a low number. I thought, in my mind, you go back to, and I know that obviously with the establishment of MLR, players from all over now get a chance to be exposed, right? There previously the exposure was, you go back to playing Super Rugby or Super League days, and I remember because I was working with Cincinnati and teams like that, so trying to get in and play in Super League in there. But I think that's one of those things that we talk about that's been a change. And when you would think that from at least your standpoint of a U23 U19 coach, that you would want that USA Eagle team to have close to 60-70% to say, hey, they've come up through the pathway, we've seen that happen, and we now they had that ability to play together longer, right? So if you like compare an England or an Ireland or something like that, where they've played together since they were kids, so they know each other. And I think you see that in the way that the Eagles play now. It's just kind of a hodgepodge, and I don't know what percentage now of players that are on that are USA Eagles actually played U23s or U19s. I would probably say it's not very many. And I know that's also due in fact to be people from different countries that now become citizens and stuff like that, which is fine. We're better for that. Rugby's better for it. But I feel as though, what you said, like with the MLR kind of playing that U23s, the academy program, the academy systems playing each other as curtain raisers is definitely right along that path. But yeah, I was kind of shocked about 33 being like, and that's good. And like, wow, I want 70% is what I'm shooting for.
Yeah, so no, I mean, that's a good point that you make there, but I think you have to put that all in context, right? If you're sitting in South Africa, or you're sitting in New Zealand, or you're sitting in England, and you've got your national U20 team, you expect the vast majority of those guys to become professional rugby players, right?
Yeah.
Whether they're playing, Super Rugby, or whether they're playing, for their national teams. Because pro rugby has existed there, they've had
For a
those
long
avenues,
time.
right? Yeah, up until most recent years, we've not had that in America, and so we get these 20-year-old players that have come perhaps through the national team age grade setup, and they become U20s. They still have some serious decisions to make, right? Until recent times, right? Well, do I need to actually go get a real job, right? Or am I going to be one of those guys that can actually now make a living playing rugby, right? That wasn't on offer before. So you think it just in context, up until most recent times, the opportunity to become a professional was only offered to the very few people, right? And the examples of that would be people like Titi Lamasateli, right? Who, as a young age grade player in the US, went on a bunch of tours with us, got actually scouted, if you will, by a number of clubs overseas. I actually spent time with Salty and a couple of others visiting with some of the premiership teams that actually wanted to bring in Titi. And, Saracens were the ones that decided on it at the time. And, we'd met with them and we're all for that. But unless you're a Titi, unless you were, capped at a young age like Titi was, those doors as a youngster, as a 20-year-old, are not open to you very much. Now, hopefully with Major League Rugby, that is. I mean, you can see already on rosters, and this has been really since the inception of Major League Rugby, that there are a lot of ex-age grade players that are on those rosters. And it's great to see that,
Yeah, exactly. And I think that that's one of those things that when we look at it, you said it right there, is that Major League Rugby, those people who have been quote unquote drafted, drafted or starting or just been signed to play in this next season, when they went to college, there was no Major League Rugby.
Right.
Like they were just like, hey, I'm just gonna go play D1, D1A, D1, whatever, in NCR. Like there was no, I guess it wasn't NCR at the time. It wasn't, whatever it was.
It wasn't NCR.
NASCO
Macro or whatever.
Macro, that's what it was. Anyway, but that's one of those things. You look at the growth of Major League Rugby as part of that catalyst, but it's still, I would say that you're still finding those in club level rugby, for the Quins, for the Huns, Black, whoever, obviously in Texas, we'll talk about it. Other states, forget them. We don't care. Sorry to everybody listening in New Mexico. But that's Aardvarks, man. They love us. They love Albuquerque.
Against those guys.
Yeah, right. But that's one of those things because of the infancy of Major League Rugby and professional rugby in America, we are still, we're still far behind, and there's still going to be those that didn't have a chance. There may be 24-year-old, a 25-year-old who didn't get a chance to actually play, to be drafted, if you will, by Major League Rugby, because this is only year 2. They now have to work with, they have to go play with the Quins and stand out and go to the academies and get recognized. And so my question to you now then is, as you come in and take over the Quins, and that, how do you work with the Jackals or other Major League Rugby teams within the state of Texas, since there are 3 of them? And I will give you credit that the Jackals are better now than they were
This time last year.
This time last year in our first episode ever, we were Rick was very excited for the Jackals, and then we all know what happened. But so how do you, coming into the program, how do you work with those guys who are maybe 25, 26, who are or older? Sorry, Rick, not that old.
Don't remind me that I'm turning 40 this year.
I am months behind you, brother. Months behind you. But yeah, but how do you kind of work with those organizations, and what do you want to see out of the Jackals to help promote that? Because that's the next phase. That's that intermediary phase, right? It's those guys who are past the college age, who have been playing club level, who want to now go play in the MLR.
Yeah, no, that's a good question, and for me it's actually a pretty straightforward, simple answer, right? My role as a coach is to get the absolute best out of a player, and in so doing, hopefully allow him to fulfill his aspirations, right?
Yeah.
So you might even be a 34-year-old thinking that you might have an opportunity at Major League
39.
Rugby. Yeah, I'll try and make it happen.
Wappa did it. Wappa did it. He can do it. Come on, man.
No, you can't. I may even think that 38-year-old or whatever, 34-year-old is potentially not going to make it, right? But I'm going to give him every opportunity, because he needs to realize himself where he stands, right? And you know what? There are so many people, like we talked about earlier on, that just totally surprise you. So, why should I be the one, dashing anybody's dreams? It's just not my role, or my place. So no, anybody I'm going to actually develop and try and have them fulfill not only their potential but their aspirations as well. Yeah.
So to add on to that, last year we saw Jackals players playing with the Quins, playing with the Reds. What's the expectation about how that'll work going forward?
Yeah, I don't really know the inner details and stuff. All I know is that there is this arrangement that these partner clubs have with the likes of the Jackals, where there is some monitoring and communication of certain players that they are interested in, let's say, our player base, and should they require them at Jackals practices or depth on a roster or whatever, that we would release them to go and have that experience and see if they can actually make a name for themselves there and reach those goals. Vice versa, if the Jackals have players that are, I don't want to use the word surplus, but maybe they're coming back from injury and they need to use maybe some D1 games and practices as a mechanism to help that happen, or maybe it's a particular skill set that they need to work on and come to us and communicate to us that they want to develop further with that player. I think there's going to be that up and down relationship. I don't know what sort of quantity that might look like. We've not really had that happen before. So I think there's a lot that we have to sort of explore as it moves forward. But I do know from what I've seen in the communication and talking to the Quinn leadership about this, is that there's definitely an open mind from both the Jackals and the Quins. And I would suspect, because the Dallas Reds are another partner in that too, that they also have that open mind as well, because I think it's mutually beneficial. And I think that's the main thing about it all.
I think we
beneficial. I'm not just I wasn't just talking mutually beneficial to the Jackals or the Quins, but the player as well. That's the main thing why all of this should
and I think one of the things we've talked about in the past, Molly, on the show, was how programs like that work with the local clubs are going to be mutually beneficial also for the clubs to be able to, let's say there's a kid in Oklahoma City, there's no pro team there, he wants to go play professional rugby, but he didn't get drafted, he's whatever, he comes down, plays for the Quins or the Reds, and that gives him a good opportunity to at least get seen by a Jackals coach, and that may be the best opportunity to make a team. And so that opportunity might be there for them where getting on with the Jackals might otherwise not be available.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And I think there's some, other layers in here that are sort of like some of the levels of detail that I think we can provide. And I'm sure that the other partner clubs will do the same thing. So, and I've seen this at the age grade level, right? We can bring a player into like a U20 camp, and they come out of a very good college program, let's say, and they come to a U20 camp. They're probably just a freshman or a sophomore, perhaps, at college, right? But they come in, and for the first like 4 days, it's like eyes wide open because they've not experienced the structure of what a U20 camp or even a Junior World Cup or a Junior World Trophy 4-week tour looks like, right?
Yeah.
When you're talking about the video analysis and the skill development and the team meetings and I mean, it just goes on and on and on, right? The publicity events, the whatever is going on in those types of things, right? So hopefully with the Quins and the other partner teams that are involved in this, we can actually provide another step in their sort of professional experience,
Yeah.
right? By things like, for example, periodization, right? You're going to be with us for a year. Here's what our calendar looks like. These are the things we're doing from an S&C perspective. These are the things we're doing from a skill development perspective, a match development, all the processes, put those in place, video analysis, the cognitive part of things as well, sharing things over different media so that people can actually see pictures, understand things, so that when they're ready to train, they actually already have this bank of information to draw from. So, and when you get into, if you've never been in a pro situation, you're going to be going in like those U20 players that I just mentioned, eyes wide open.
Deer in headlights.
You may not be very effective for a while, so hopefully we can bridge that gap as well.
No, that's awesome. Well, I think
Yeah.
that, what that is, I see kind of as you've been talking, like where you want to take, or at least I think you're taking, the Quins. But my final question to you from me, and Rick, you may have another one too, but my final question for me is, where do you see your involvement in the growth of rugby in Texas, fitting right now? Obviously we have Major League Rugby. The growth of the sport is, I'd like to think that we're expanding exponentially, and I see more and more people, posting about rugby, talking about rugby, more fans online. Where do you fit into that? The growth for the Quins. Let's say 1 year, 3 years down the road, because 5 years, who knows what happens in 5 years anymore? Who knows what happens in 1 year? I mean, jeez, especially at this podcast. But so where do you see that path going? Where's your involvement? What do you think that you're going to be doing, and where would you like to see the Quins? August 24th, 2022. Where do you want to see yourself in Dallas?
So again, that's a really easy question for me, right? And that is
good. I like to throw up softballs for everybody.
Yeah,
I don't ask any
I,
tough questions,
but again, it's been my whole approach as a rugby coach, right? Is I will go wherever needed. I've coached in some of the most atrocious places and conditions in the world to people that don't even know the game. I've and I've thoroughly enjoyed that, and think I've made a difference, to those people, not only as rugby players but as people. I've worked with the U19 women before, the Quinn women. Some of the best experiences of my life is coaching the ladies. So yeah, I'm packed. I'm ready to roll. Wherever I'm needed. I love working with youth and youth development. That's been my forte over the last, obviously since 2004, I guess. Love that development aspect of things. But again, I also love the high performance side of things.
Yeah.
And so wherever I can make a difference, I'm prepared to do that. With it applicable to the Quins, I don't see myself going anywhere. I mean, I started with the Quins back in 1987 as a player, before any of you guys were probably even born.
No, I'm sorry.
Might have still be in diapers. It was close.
Yeah, at that point, but and I just want to make sure that I can build a culture with the club where players choose to be, and want to be. And it's a great experience for them. And while I'm in this for players having fun, I'm also in this for people developing. Right, that's why we're in the club. We have aspirations, and people have different aspirations, and yeah, we can cater for those. But at the end of the day, it's all about getting better. right? We want to get better as players. We want to get better as people. We want to get better as a team. We want to get better as a club. People talk about like wins and losses and results. I'm not necessarily focused so much on that. I'm focused on performance, right? If we put the right processes in place, we develop the players appropriately, the club buys in as well, right? And we all have the shared mental model of what a club looks like. We have the shared mental model of how we're going to play the game. We walk towards that vision. At the end of the day, we'll be successful, and it will be sustained success. I'm not looking for anything that's flash, fly by night. One season we do extremely well, and next season we drop off the edge of the world, right? For me, that's not the definition of success.
Yeah, and I mean, I know personally that when I got out of college, I had never gone a semester of my life without playing a sport. Right. And it took me 3 years to find rugby, and then, have Coach Moley out there coaching me every, 2 or 3 days a week. And it wasn't easy. But that must have been what I liked. I liked getting beat up because I played football and basketball through college, and fell in love with the sport. And I would not be here. I would not be at SMU coaching if it wasn't for this man right here that we're interviewing. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I love it, and for me, it's all about the players, man. If we, as coaches or administrators or as referees or as whatever, don't have the players at the center of whatever we do, we've lost the plot. So no, I like to hear that from people like you. Thanks, man.
Yeah. Thanks. And, great interview today. We're going to be coming back after the break to finish up. It's been 1 year since this podcast began, and it's been a wild one.
People still listen.
Awesome. During the pandemic, we started a podcast and completed a year during the pandemic. I know it's
feels like we're still at the same spot we were at the pandemic, though.
When it's so difficult when we're virtual on here.
Well, we're also all, not Grant's not in this interview, but we're also 3 hours from each other, so it's
true.
It's a little bit further than normal, but sounds good, man. We'll take a break and we'll be right back.
Well, thanks for having me, guys.
Yep, for sure. Thank you, Molly. Appreciate it. Well, welcome back after that break. A great interview. I think the Jackals with the new coaching staff is going to be it'll be good for him. I'm glad that things are not Jackals. Excuse me, Harlequins. Oh, that's right. The Jackals don't have a coach yet. While you're back, you may realize that Rick Collins is still frozen. We're still trying to figure that out. So while he's frozen, Grant and I are gonna kind of wrap things up, but in a bittersweet way. So it's been 1 year, Grant, where we said at the beginning, we've all kind of done a lot of stuff here. We've worked through a lot of different games. Rick Collins has now left the broadcast, and hopefully he'll come right back. But we'll keep him on here in memoriam, right? His phone keeps overheating, is what he says. So, but we are glad that that he was able to join us very partially and for like 2 minutes. And he was here for the interview, so that's good. But the bittersweet part of things are after this past year and the things going on in both Grant's life and in my life, Grant and I will both be departing Texas Rugby Monthly after this episode. They'll do a 1 month hiatus. You'll still be able to get the podcast in the same channel and all that other good stuff. But Grant, you can tell him why, and I can tell people why I'm not coming back if you want to do that, but it's entirely up to you, man.
I'm just taking as manager of HTX, and with HTX becoming more integrated with the Sabercats, I'm taking on a little bit of a more of an inside role, right?
Yeah.
Than I was before.
Yeah.
We were kind of hard barrier between HTX and the Cats before, and that barrier is gone now.
Yep.
And so I'll have a lot more insight into the cats, and it's really not fair
Yeah.
for me to be, part of that system and then be on a podcast talking about them.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then there's a lot of stuff on my table and on my plate, and it's just going to be hard to do another podcast once a month. I'm sure
Hey.
I'm going to get hit up to do one-off podcasts here and there, and that's great.
That's fine.
But that's an interview, and that usually takes about 30 minutes, and then we move on.
Yeah.
But you've got a much different
Yes.
thing going on.
And they'll find out on the next episode of the Austin Rugby podcast as well too. But I am actually stepping down from both podcasts for life reasons. As in, I am moving out of the state of Texas after 6-7 years or so of being here. I now am headed back to be closer to family. A very tough decision, and to leave the podcast, everybody's like, well, you can still do the Austin Rugby podcast just remote. And I said, I could. It's just really hard. We've done a lot of stuff with the AGs and being here, but you need somebody that's on boots on the ground. Basically, you got to have somebody.
Yeah.
So I have a couple of people lined up for both to take my spot on this. And Rick found out today, however, he couldn't react to this in real time. We kind of dropped it on him at the same time, so he was shocked. But I think really what we've done here with Texas Rugby Month is something great, and people can step in, and I think that's kind of the point. Is we may be the first ones to do it. Rick can come back and continue to work on it, and I think he wants to. But I think there are other people in Austin, in Houston. Hey, there's Scrummed Up. Those guys are in. I want to say they're A&M guys that are doing a rugby podcast here in Texas. So
Yeah,
I think there's opportunity for others to step into our spot. You won't miss us as much.
No,
but yeah. So
but you'll still see me around. Don't get me wrong.
I will be on the periphery, watching in, listening in every week to the Austin Rugby podcast, as we have people who potentially will take that over, and I hope they continue it. It was a pleasure to do it for 4 seasons. Been a pleasure to do this for a year. It's been fun. Had a hell of a time. We've had a whole lot of laughs. We do record things that we don't put online, and it's probably for the best in most cases.
Right?
Who knows? Maybe we'll throw some of those on there. But yeah, for all of you that listen, for all of you that watch, we do greatly appreciate it. I know Rick is sad that we're both leaving. He's also a little pissed that we're both leaving.
We dropped it on him like that.
We dropped it on him like that. He knew. But I think it'll probably be about a month off, because not a lot happens in the month of September in rugby, and around the country.
Silly
really.
season.
There's nothing going on. We were excited, and we kind of realized that as we got to the end of MLR, we're like, oh God, September, there's gonna be shit going on. So, but overall, I've had a great time. Grant, I know that we've had some great laughs and some good times, and
Yes, we had.
it's not like we won't ever talk again, and we shoot the shit on different platforms, and we'll talk about rugby.
Yep.
But for all of you that listen, for all of you that watch, for Rick Collins up in Dallas, for Grant Cole over in Houston, I'm Dustin Zaire in Austin, saying thank you all so very much. It's been a pleasure. We wish you all the best, and until next time, we'll see you on the pitch.